You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
It's so easy to start writing. Starting writing is easy. It's the easiest thing in the world. You get a piece of paper, you get a blank screen, and you just start. And that's easy. Anybody can do it. Anybody, you don't even have to take any writing classes. You just have to have the spark of an idea and you start. It's very easy. The difficult part is finishing. It's so easy to start and so hard to finish. I know, because I think I've started 31 acts that I've never finished. Now, one acts are like 25 to 30 pages. Those are easy to write. I once wrote a one-act play while I was working an 8-hour shift at the video store. It wasn't a very good play. It was about people who worked at a pasta sauce factory. Don't ask. It never went anywhere. I don't even know where it's at. I've written so many small, little, tiny things. I don't even know where some of them are at. My friend Robbie wanted to, like I said in the last episode, make Stolen Hearts into something, and it took weeks, months to even find where it was, because I did the majority of my like college writing and stuff was all done longhand and then typed into a computer, and this is long before flash drives. I used to save my scripts on hard floppy disks, and I had a box of them with like Jeff's writing. Like, this is really archaic stuff. I didn't even own a computer until 2000 or 2001. I used to get on the internet with web TV, if you could believe that. But no, it's like delving into Indiana Jones's archives to look at my early stuff. It's scattered in boxes, and the thing I did, though, to my credit, was I would date each page. So you could see, like, I started on a date, and then I finished on a date, and in between, like, the breaks that I took. And some of them were really long. Like, I would pick up things months later and try to finish them. Because, like I said, starting is easy. Finishing, like pushing yourself to finish something, it's so difficult. And I'll get into, when I talk about my novels, the trick I did there to make myself finish. But I left off last time talking about my big, the first original all-my-idea screenplay that I wrote called Starstruck, that I shopped around and had pitch meetings. And like, I thought, you know what? I'm going to be the guy that writes one original screenplay and I'm in. And as you can see, that didn't quite work out. But that's not to say that my ideas didn't somehow make it to Hollywood. Because I'll tell you, a couple years later, I was sitting in the movie theater, and a trailer comes on for a movie called Swordfish. John Travolta, Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry. And the finale of Swordfish is the same exact finale of Starstruck. Instead of money, it's hostages in a van, in a bus, and they've got the streets blocked thinking they'll never get away, and they lift it off in a helicopter and fly the damn thing through Los Angeles. And I'll tell you, folks, I sat there and I had my heart ripped from my chest right there in the movie theater. I don't even remember what movie I was going to see. Like, it didn't matter after that. I was like, oh no. I mean, the only thing I can even compare it to is the first time I discovered that Winona Ryder was dating Johnny Depp, and I'm like, oh, that's so far out of my league as to be ridiculous. And here's Joel Silver. He's got a bus being flown, from a helicopter through the streets of L.A. My script's dead in the water. The big finale has been taken. Oh my God! So eventually, I had to watch Swordfish, and that's not the only similarity, folks. Swordfish opens with a bank robbery. My movie opens with a bank robbery. Mine has a freeze frame at the end of the bank robbery. Theirs has a bullet time shot, like from The Matrix. Very similar. It has John Travolta playing a bad guy, and at the end, I'm not kidding, the real bad guy is frozen on ice, and they're going to escape and pin it on him after the bus chase through the skyscrapers of LA. It has nothing to do with the Academy Awards or anything, but all of my action beats and my story revelations are in Swordfish. Now, I don't know. I'm not casting aspersions to the fine screenwriters of Swordfish. I'm simply saying, damn, it's so close to mine. Close enough that, again, Starstruck was never going to get made. And I knew that, so it just became a writing sample. And the months that it took to write it and hone it so that I didn't feel embarrassed taking around, I mean, you have to chalk it up to a writing sample, an exercise. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. If you want to be a writer, it's not that you want to be a writer. You have to be. If you find that you have to be a writer, because like I said before, I don't have any free time. You know, I work, I have children, I have to make money, I have to keep busy, and writing and doing podcasts are things that I do because if I don't, I'll go crazy. I'll go insane. I have to write. Like, I'm in a fever pitch right now on my novel, but I'll get to that. But you just find the time, and if you pour your heart and soul into a project and it doesn't go anywhere, you just chalk it up as education and you move on. And I know that because the actual first screenplay that I ever wrote, and the reason I didn't bring it up first is because it's not my stuff. I think I've said it before in the show. I get my creative juices really going. They're at their height when I'm watching a terrible movie. If I go to the movies, and you know I go a lot, and the movie's just terrible, awful, my mind just drifts. Like, I'm still paying attention to the movie, hoping it gets better, but I just like, man, I could do so much better if I was writing movies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like when you're watching somebody do a chore and you're like, look, you're doing it wrong. Just, will you step aside and let me do it? I want to do that to the screenwriter. Can you just step aside? Let me finish this scene. Well, the movie's already done, Jeff. It doesn't matter. We can fix it in post. So I sit and I watch movies and I dream up better ways of doing things, you know. So, or not even that. Like, the other aspect would be if I just simply love the characters. So it's not really a surprise that the first full-length screenplay that I actually finished from start to finish, I was working at Spencer Gifts. I wrote it on Christina Applegate, Kelly Bundy notebooks from Married with Children because they were on clearance for 19 cents. So I bought a stack of them, and in between customers and helping people, I would just sit right at the counter. I mean, I was at the mall alone most of the time because Spencer's had a lot of time where you were just by yourself, and I would just write in the screenplay. And I got inspired watching Batman Returns, 1992. Like, that's a long time ago, folks. So I sat and I wrote what I thought would be like the most badass Batman story I could dream of, you know. So it's called, I wrote it down, it's called Batman, A Touch of Madness. And basically it opens on the end of the 1989 Batman. And you know, when Commissioner Gordon reaches down to the Joker's body, there's like a laugh box on it. Now, they killed the Joker. They killed Jack Nicholson's Joker, which all of us in the theater were like, why would you kill the Joker? Are there not going to be any more of these? Did you guys think it was one and done? This is Batman we're talking about. So, you know, when the Joker dies at the end of the first Batman, the Keaton one, you're just shocked. Like, he's dead? So, and I know there was a plan for the fourth installment that never got made, or the fifth. Oh my God. It went Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, and then there was supposed to be a fifth called Batman Triumphant. And in it, the Scarecrow was supposed to douse Batman with fear gas and in his hallucinations, he would see Jack Nicholson return as the Joker. Now, I'm not a big fan of Joel Schumacher's movies, but that cameo alone really, it's a shame they didn't put that into production. But after the box office returns of Batman and Robin, you just can't blame them. So at the beginning of my script, which takes off from the end of that '89 Batman, they're rushing the body of the Joker, out of the streets when they realize it's the body of Boss Grissom, the character that Jack Palance played. So the Joker has switched out the bodies. And the thing is, with the Joker, you don't have to explain how. He just did it. It was another guy that fell off the tower. The Joker is alive and well, and Bob the Joker's goon is not dead. I mean, I just unraveled all of the missteps that they took at the end of the first '89 Batman, and then I built on the really good revelations that they brought about in Batman Returns, most importantly, the Catwoman character. So the story is Batman is fighting crime in Gotham. Vicky Vale returns. Again, it was tying up loose ends that they just unraveled in their script. So Vicky Vale returns to Gotham. She's vying for Bruce Wayne's affections, he's in love with Catwoman. And there's a guy named Joe Curtis, and he's running for district attorney. And there's a big election. There's a lot of big set pieces. And in the end, Batman gets framed for all these crimes, and he thinks he's going crazy. And the mantra that he keeps repeating is, I fight it, I don't create it. I fight it, I don't create it. And Vicky Vale gets turned into a living doll. The finale takes place at an abandoned amusement park with a runaway roller coaster. The Batmobile gets blown up and it turns into the Bat Streak, which is a little tiny plane. There's a lot of gadgets and gizmos and revelations. And in the end, the character of Joe Curtis, Joe Curtis, turns out to be the Joker running for district attorney, and he's won, but it's too late. So there's a big battle. Batman fights off his demons, his touch of madness, and the Joker is defeated once and for all. And Wayne Manor is blown up. Alfred has a heart attack. I borrowed, if you're going to steal for the best, so I borrowed from Dark Knight Returns and a few other, Killing Joke. That's what Batman is. You're supposed to, if you want to make a Batman movie, you borrow here and there from his lore. And in the end, Batman and Catwoman sail away on a boat called Shrek's Wreck, which is named for Max Schreck, the Christopher Walken character from Batman Returns. So I knew it wasn't made to sell. It was just a writing exercise. Could I start a movie screenplay and actually finish it? Because every writer's got 30 screenplays he's never finished, 50 or more. Because it's easy to write 5 pages and then never go back to it. I lost interest. You have to get to a magic number. Like, what do you think in your head is the magic number that says, I've gone so far in this thing that to stop would be silly. Look how much I've done. On a screenplay, it's like 40 or 50 pages. Because optimum, you want to go to 120, depending on what the genre is. For a Batman movie, it was 120. So I kept that. I've still got that somewhere. It really, on its Christina Applegate, Kelly Bundy folders. But then I wrote Starstruck, and that's when I was like, I'm going to be a screenwriter, man. I don't care, But I learned valuable lessons along the way. Like every time I would, have the script in somebody's hands, I would learn another lesson, So the next script I wrote, start to finish, was another just an exercise, and it was a sequel to The Spy Who Shagged Me. So after Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me, it was 3 years before Goldmember. So in that time, so we're talking anywhere between 99 and 2002, and again, I probably got it dated. I wrote an original Austin Powers screenplay, originally titled Austin Powers Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. This is years before the Shane Black movie, but I had read somewhere that title from like one of those hard-boiled detective novels. I just was like, oh, that's a great title, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I mean, that's great. And then like, this is how weird I am. Like right at the time that I was finishing that script, something was released on I don't know what it was, what platform it was. I don't know if it was a comic book, a TV show, or whatever, but they used Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And I was like, oh, well, I don't want to use it because I don't want to be accused of cribbing it from that. Even though, again, this is just a writing sample. So I changed the title to Austin Powers Shag, Rattle, and Roll. And, I just, for a while, I really liked the Austin Powers character. I liked the humor of it. It's such a weird things because I saw the first film in the theater and I hated it. Like I couldn't wait for it to end. It was like nails on a chalkboard. And then when it arrived on VHS at work, like in between shows at Mystery Lodge, we watched it all day. Like all day we watched this Austin Powers with all the deleted scenes and stuff, and it's like it became a thing. So, like everybody else, when the second one came around, it was a cultural event. We all went. We went in costume. Rachel dressed up like a 60s girl. I wore a cranberry suit with the ruffled sleeves, the glasses, the hair. I had a Swedish penis enlarger pump that I ran around with that I made out of like a tube. Like it was crazy, but it was a big deal back then. I mean, Mike Myers owned most of the 90s as far as catchphrases. Between Wayne's World and Austin Powers, the guy knows how to do a catchphrase. So, and to write comedy. So I wrote this script, and basically it tells the story of, it's two prongs. Like Austin Powers are always two pronged. He always has Austin's story and Dr. Evil's plan. In the first film, Austin is adjusting to life in the 90s while Dr. Evil is going to blow up the Earth's core. Right? That's the plot, In the second one, Austin's learning to be a more responsible person and not sleep with everybody. And Dr. Evil's plan, he's got Mini-Me and he's on the moon with a laser, right? So there's always each character needs a storyline. So in my script, the Austin Powers storyline is that he gets paired with Basil Exposition's daughter, Betty Exposition. And throughout the course of the film, the script, he sees that he's what's the word I'm looking for? He's outdated. He's useless. He has no faith that he's ever going to adjust, and it culminates in him seeing his suit in a thrift store window. And it's Betty that teaches him to embrace the time that you're in now and be young and be free. And it's a cute story arc. It's a lot of fun. The Dr. Evil story is he can't defeat Austin on his own, so he's going to kidnap the one person who's cooler than Austin Powers. So he goes back in time and he kidnaps Elvis. And there's an interesting, funny scene where he makes Elvis watch a series of these public service movies, You don't want to be a swinger. You don't want to like rock and roll. Rock and roll is bad. And it's all Dr. Evil and Mini-Me acting out these terrible PSAs. And the evil corporation hook. Because remember, in the first one, they have all these businesses, including a company that makes models of factories. The second one, they are in the Space Needle and they own Starbucks. And I mean, that was really ahead of its time because Starbucks had not taken hold in Southern California in 99. It was a couple years later before they started springing up everywhere. So he was ahead of his time. Well, in mine, Dr. Evil has purchased the Walt Disney Corporation, and he lives in the top. His evil lair is in the top of the Matterhorn. So the whole time they're having their big meeting, every few minutes a bell rings, they stop, and a Matterhorn bobsled slides through the conference room. It's to me, it's very funny. You know, he goes, Dr. Evil, while you were frozen, we took over the Walt Disney Company, and now we own 13 theme parks on 5 continents, and blah, 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 and we own a certain shareholder stock and this and that. He goes, well, what about that is evil, number 2? He goes, well, we do charge $8 for a Coke. That's evil enough, I guess. Fine, right, sure. So, there's a lot of that. It's a funny script. There's a sequence where, remember the scene in The Abyss where they send Ed Harris into the abyss itself, breathing liquid oxygen. So they fit Austin and Betty with these so they can dive into the submarine lagoon, and it's yellow, breathable liquid oxygen, right? And Austin has brought Baby Ruth candy bars to snack on once they find out Dr. Evil is somehow under the submarine ride. What happens is that Dr. Evil and everybody get on the sub, and instead of going along the track, it veers off into a tube and ends up in the ocean, which, if you don't know how far Anaheim is from the ocean, you'd find hysterical. But Betty and Austin are diving, and Austin's suit, the tube he's breathing from gets tangled and pops. So as the people are riding by, they just see Austin Powers flailing about in a cloud of yellow, and he tries to signal to them and ends up wiping the candy bar, the Baby Ruth, on the window. So everybody on the submarine is vomiting because they think it's poop and pee, and it's very juvenile, but it's very funny. And then finally, like way at the end, Dr. Evil reveals that his plan is he's going to amplify his time machine from part 2 and send the Earth back in time, the Earth itself back in time. If he's not paid his money, I'll send the Earth back in time to the time of the Bible, back to the time of Genesis. And that's why I call this the Genesis device. And, Scott Evil is like, no. That's from Star Trek 2, man. So Austin, eventually they get there. They're going to thwart him. Austin finally battles evil Elvis Presley with like karate moves. There's a subplot of Scott Evil shaving his head and putting a piece of bacon on his face so he looks like his father. Come to daddy, sure. So, and then in the end, the final joke of it is Betty and Austin are in bed together, afterwards. And Betty says, I don't understand, Austin. If Dr. Evil went back in time and kidnapped Elvis, how come, and brought him to the future, how come I still have a memory of Elvis? So we cut to 1976, Las Vegas, and of course, fat bastard has taken the place of Elvis in the jumpsuit, and he's doing it's hunka better than love, that sort of thing. So it's a funny script. It's an exercise. There's nothing wrong with just exercising your creative juices, and it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, well, I have to come up with this original idea. Not necessarily. You can play in other people's sandboxes as long as you're aware that you're never going to get paid for it. Mike Myers is never going to read that script and go, thanks a lot, Jeff, we want it. We're going to buy it from you. No, it's not going to work that way. They come up with their own stuff, their own bits. Sadly, what they came up with was Goldmember, and I just remember watching Goldmember going, ooh, God, my script is better. But, what do I know? I'm just a guy watching a movie. So, but you can't be dissuaded, A lot of people have broken into the business by writing spec TV scripts. I mean, spec is when you write it on your own. There's nobody paying you for it. Everything I write is spec. I'm not getting paid for anything. But the Austin Powers script was a lot of fun to write. Like, it just flew off my hand, and before I knew it, I had 100 pages. 100 pages is perfect, Comedy, 85 to 95 to 100. Drama, action, 110 to 120 is about what you should be shooting for, It's what I shoot for, and I'm actually shooting for that halfway point, because the halfway point says I'm not going to stop. So I should say that I also wrote this ridiculous movie when I worked at Knott's Berry, I still work at Knott's Berry Farm, but when I worked in the in the jail, the Sad Eye Joe jail, I sat there 8.5, 9 hours a day sometimes, and there weren't always guests there. So what would I do? I would sit and write. This is before cell phones, folks. Everybody now, I've said this before, everybody now uses every free moment to look at their phone. And we've lost idle time. We've lost time where you just don't do anything. You don't need stimulation to your brain every second of the day. I see people hit the button to cross the road, and they can't wait for the light without the phone coming out. And I wonder, sadly, how many epiphanies, how many creative projects are we losing because people aren't engaged in thinking and being creative on their own for their own stuff, and instead they're playing Angry Birds or Candy Crush just because, hey, a beat's just standing here not doing anything. You know what I mean? I've said it on the Christmas episode a couple years ago. I have sat in a dark room staring at the wall just to decompress. I think we're overloaded with stimulation these days. Drive down the street, every billboard's winking and blinking and flashing at you, and the choices that used to be 10 are now 1,000. McDonald's doesn't sell hamburgers, they sell everything. That's why I like going to In-N-Out Burger. What do you want? I want an In-N-Out Burger. What else they serve? Nothing. Hey, you heard about the secret menu? I don't care about the secret menu. You know what I mean? I'm going to use the brain power you're using to order your double 4x4 animal style sink 'em and burn 'em. I'm coming up with scripts. It's a better use of my time, but you be the judge of what you're doing. So sitting there in the jail at Knott's, I wrote a movie. It took a year. And I wrote it on steno pads because that would fit in the little nook that I had under the window. It's 10 steno pads. It's hundreds of pages. When I finally sat down to type this thing, it was typed single-spaced, script form, 300 pages. That's a 5-hour movie, folks. I finished that. It's never going to see the light of day. It is an autobiographical tale of my high school years, with an overlap of fictional reunion, like what if stuff. It's funny, it's silly, it's tragic. I don't, in the high school portion, I don't get the girl. But no, that one's called Nowhere Fast, based off of a Smiths title. But it'll never surface. It's too painful. It's just too painful. So. But I did write it. It's 300 pages. Talk about commitment, right? Or being committed. I should be committed. But that one's toast, ancient history. Okay, so after that, I embarked on a series of just screenplays that weren't adaptations of other people's work. They were original, my stuff. And I just... some people, writing is torture to them. They sit down and they're assigned something to write and they just want to kill themselves, right? But I've never looked at it that way. I have, and I think what happened was you learned a valuable lesson, and it could have been, how do you say this? Using those established characters helped me discover the way I could write. And what I mean by that is, you write a Batman script, you know how Batman is going to react. You know what he'll do. If you write a scene where Batman does something that is out of character, it's gonna light up the page. This is wrong. It's wrong. Same with Austin Powers. Austin's got a way of doing things, baby. And if you try to manipulate him into doing something that is against his character, you either have a really good reason for doing it, or the character won't do it. And I learned to listen to the characters. The plot's great. You can get to the plot, whatever it is, the bomb is going to explode. There's a birthday party, a birth, a death, a wedding, a love, whatever it is. That's great. But you have to listen to what the characters are telling you, because the characters are going to define which way the script goes. That's just the way it is. Watch any movie that's good, that's solid, and you'll notice the characters are consistent, and they have what they are at the beginning, they have the challenges that they face, and they have the new person they become after facing that challenge. That's the story arc, right? I'm here, something's happened, I'm changed. And the characters will tell you whether they'll do it or not. And if you do something that's out of character, you should be so in tune with these fake people that you've created that you know something's up. It's just the way it goes. And when I get to my novels, they tell me what they're going to do. I am just the conduit, as it were. So I started writing, in earnest, a bunch of screenplays, so that, like I said, I had one of every genre. Like, if I got a meeting, man, what are you looking for? I got it. What are you looking for? I have a script. I have an idea. Let me tell you a story. The trouble is, I took a different life path. I had kids. I have responsibility. I cannot be up in Hollywood all day hustling and eating cheese sandwiches. If I'd gone that route, I don't know what would have happened. I wouldn't be as fulfilled as I am having a family. So you have to, the fork is in the road, and you have to figure out what you're going to do. And my choice was made. So I'm going to write these scripts. I'm going to write them, and it's weird to think I've woken up from a deep sleep with a full screenplay in my head. And that's so strange. And it happened with a script called Etheria. 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 I woke up, the title, Etheria. Well, what is Etheria? Oh, it's a city. Oh, it is? Yeah, where is it? I don't know. It's somewhere over the horizon. And I wrote this script really fast. 120 pages in like a race. I was racing to the end. And it's about a woman who they're at a theme park, and her boyfriend proposes to her. It's very romantic. And the next day she gets in a terrible car crash. And she's in a coma. And when she wakes up from her coma, he's left her. He did not wait for her. So she decides to pick up the pieces of her life and move to another town. So she moves to this town called Etheria. And it's weird. I can see Etheria in my mind right now as clear as the day I woke up with it in my head. Etheria to me is this real, just out of reach, tangible place, nestled in a valley. With it's night, there are bright lights, there's a Ferris wheel. I can see it in my mind's eye. It's amazing. And so she moves to Etheria. She gets a job, a new job, a desk job. She gets a new friend who is trying to get her out of her shell to go dating again. And suddenly bad things start happening. And she can't figure out what exactly is going on. She thinks she's being followed. One day, there's a knock at the door. There's nobody there, but there's flowers from her boyfriend. And when she calls, he doesn't answer. And she's like, why are you doing this to me? If you don't want to be with me, just leave me alone. Don't bring flowers here. So she eventually, she gets attacked by a homeless man who's muttering gibberish about how he has to move her. You need to be moved. We have to move you. And she's freaking out. The police won't help her. And I'm trying to think, there's a certain word she uses. Etheria is the name of the town, but there's another name, and somebody whispers it to her. Somebody shows up. It's been a long time since I read this one, but somebody shows up and says, I believe you. there are other things going on. I'm here. I can help you. And he whispers the name like of this drug, or just his name. I don't remember what it was, but she goes to and hires a private investigator, and he's going to help her. He's like, look, lady, people come in all the time. I hear about all kinds of stuff, and when she mentions that name to him, he's like, you have to go now. I can't be dealing. Whatever you're into, I can't deal with it. And she's like, I can't go for anybody for help. Well, she ends up finding an underground movement in Etheria, and she finds one of their meetings where there's a room full of people all talking about strange whispers and people vanishing, and she's like, finally. So when she goes back the next day, the whole building is gone, and there's nothing there. It's as if it had never existed. So she thinks like the government is out to get her, and she's freaking out. And then her best friend vanishes. She's alone, and finally, when the men in the black van who've been following her for a while, she finally gets caught by them. She can't get away, and they take her to this institute, and she's subjected to this terrible interrogation. They put her in a black rubber bag with only a tube sticking out, and this evil doctor asks her these questions, and when she gives an answer he doesn't like, he holds the tube closed so she can't breathe. Like, it's really, really dark. So finally at the end, he takes her to a door and says, through this doorway is all the answers, but you have to open it yourself. And they're trying to stop her from opening. And when she finally gets through the door, she, you probably know where this is going. She wakes up from the coma, and the name that she was told was the name of the experimental drug they were using on her to wake her up from the coma. And so she's shown a room. Do you ever see The Game? Like, I really like The Game with Michael Douglas. There's a scene near the end of The Game where all these people that have been tormenting him, he opens a door at this facility, and they're all in costume having lunch. Like, it's all fake. And he's like, dude, you can't go there. So I echoed it when she opens a door, and everybody from Etheria, everybody she met in town, is lying in a bed in a coma. Like, they had a shared experience in the coma together. And everything starts to make sense. The boyfriend's flowers were him visiting her at her bed, and she wouldn't wake up even though he's right there. And she's like, why are you leaving? He's like, I'm not. I'm right here. I never left. So it does have a really nice, happy ending, but it's really dark. It's what I would call like antiseptic, like real clean and sterile psychological horror. I don't write a lot of that, but like I said, I dreamed it, and it arrived in my head fully formed. I was taking dictation while I was writing it. It's a great script. Now, Etheria was the script that I entered in the first Project Greenlight contest. If you remember, Project Greenlight was Affleck and Matt Damon sponsored a screenwriting contest, and the prize was they're going to make your movie. This was early in the 2000s, let me tell you. This was so early that uploading an entire screenplay to the internet took hours. I was on dial-up, you know what I mean? The screaming telephone dial-up. And the thing with Project Greenlight was you had to upload your script, and before it would enter competition, you had to do two things. You had to write a synopsis, write a smaller synopsis, like a byline, and then detailed series of questions that that whoever read your script would have to answer correctly. And the reason for that is, in order to get your script in a competition, you had to review 3 scripts. It was all self-reviewed. So I can remember trying to upload Etheria to the Project Greenlight website. It would crash. I would lose my synopsis, my questions. I remember like crying, like you're doing everything right, and it just stops. And you kids today with your high speed, you have no idea how hard this was back in the day. I wept. Rachel would come home like, "What are you doing?" I'm trying to get my script onto Project Greenlight again, and I was so angry. So I remember finally getting mine uploaded. Perseverance pays off, kids. And then I had to read 3 different screenplays, answer the questions correctly, review those screenplays, submit your reviews, and then your screenplay would be activated in competition. And let me tell you, folks, I was like, I was really fair when I read these scripts. One of them was like just a silly comedy, but it starred Adam Sandler. And I just wrote in the review, like, you can't cast your movie. Oh my God, that's such a rookie mistake. Because if Adam Sandler says no, you don't have a movie. You've tailored it to him. You've copied his persona, his actions, and you've put it in screenplay form. And because remember, the goal of Greenlight was the movie was going to get made. And I remember reading some that had like special effects, expensive special effects, and like they're not going to make this. They're never going to get this. Is ridiculous. And when I got at the end, I didn't win Project Greenlight. It was Battle of Shaker Heights that won with Shia LaBeouf. But I remember getting at the end, you got all your reviews, and man, oh my God, they destroyed Etheria. They hated it. They nitpicked every scene out of that script. And talk about being knocked down a peg. I was knocked down 3 or 4 pegs. I was brought way below. I was to earth and then pushed under the soil. But I didn't. What do I care? I didn't win. Fine. You yokes didn't like my screenplay. I don't care, because I have to write. I'm not going to be dissuaded because a couple of guys in the internet world. And this is long before internet trolling became a thing. Like Greenlight was, you were supposed to review it. Oh man, I just remember reading them going, I was actually nice in my reviews. These people are mean. You know what? I have them printed out somewhere. Someday I will dig those up. I know I still have those. But man, it was humbling. It was really humbling. And the only saving grace to that was, like, as someone like me, I call myself a writer. I have to write. And so along at that moment, opportunities arose at work to work on a big show there. So working on that big show and writing, what I thought were really funny jokes, and then actually seeing them get to the stage, like that satisfied the writing itch that I had. And it was part of my job. So I would get paid, indirectly for doing that show. And that felt really good. So I would okay, relax. You're not writing the great American novel or screenplay, but you're writing the stage show that's enjoyed by thousands of people each night. That really made me feel good. You need, and after Project Greenlight, I needed something that said, you might still call yourself a writer. So I kept plunking away at it. I took a lot of breaks, I would work on other things at work. I did a lot of smaller projects. But, I was always very keenly aware that I needed in my life, and everybody's different, but I needed an ongoing background project, whatever it is, something that instead of, and this is before smartphones, obviously, but I still understood the need for filling the time with something that at the end was productive. I've created something. Carpenters build things. Painters paint. Writers must write. So the next one I wrote was something called Kismet, and I wanted to write a romantic comedy. So I wrote 2 in a row, thinking I'll give a shot at these. The first one is actually called First Kiss, and it was a about a young girl who, for some reason, every time she has a love match with a guy, he never calls her again. They share a kiss, and he never calls again. And she's told by her grandma, who is a witch, that she finally admits, look, you're under a spell. Something happened when you were younger. You did something to the witch across the street, and she hexed you. And whenever you find true love and you have her first kiss, he's going to forget who you are. So she finally finds the one, right? And she tries everything to get to that second date, right? They go out to dinner, and he gives her a quick kiss before going to the bathroom, and he never comes back. So you see her just like sitting in the restaurant alone for an hour. They have another date. Like he forgets, so they have that date again. They have a first kiss. He forgets. So finally, she has to confront the old witch and break the spell, and she ends up this really fun finale of running under a ladder, letting a black cat cross her path. All the things that are bad luck, she sheds from her persona, and she breaks the spell, and they live happily ever after. It's a very cute movie. It came out, I wrote it before 50 First Dates. So I remember when, that one came out, I'm like, oh, that's awfully similar, but, she forgets who he is oh, it's been done. So once again, it's not exactly the same, but it's close enough that no one's going to buy mine, so it goes in the folder. I wrote another one called Kismet, where this girl just can't. The girl can't meet the right guy. She's unlucky in love, so she actually gets a job as a psychic on the telephone, and she discovers that she can help anybody find love except herself. She's the perfect matchmaker and problem solver for all these people, but she can't solve her own problems. It's a really cute screenplay about focusing on everything in your life except the one thing that's important. And in the end, she's been talking to a guy on the phone, and on the phone, it's caller ID. You see the name and where they're from. And she ends up telling everybody she's going to fly to Alaska to meet Jake. This guy, Jake in Alaska. And as she's announcing it to the whole restaurant where they hang out, this guy looks up for the end and he's like, what do you mean? I'm Jake Alaska. And she discovers that the caller ID was wrong. It was his whole name, not where he was from. So the Kismet portion comes in the fact that the guy that she's in love with has been sitting 2 rows over in the diner the whole movie. It's really cute. They kiss, they fall in love. And I wrote a couple of those just, because I get dragged to them as a husband, as a man who dates women. I get dragged to romantic comedies all the time. So I was like, I'm going to write one that's palatable to me, that's got substance and is a little different other than, I remember watching an episode of Ally McBeal, and she broke up with this guy because he had a nose whistle. And I'm like, that's so petty. I know it's supposed to be funny, but it's so petty as to be, cruel, So, the last main screenplay that I wrote, it's so funny. Every time I say the last, I think of not one but 2 others that I wrote. Oh my God, I really did write a lot of scripts, folks. I wrote 2 in a row thinking we had buyers for them already. I had a friend who was in the industry who was like, we have a guy, and remember after 300, because remember 300 was shot totally on a soundstage. And I remember he came to me and he's like, this guy's got a soundstage, the green soundstage, and he wants a fanciful script that takes place, that could be computer generated, like Sin City or 300. So I wrote 2 scripts really fast. The first one was called Soda Jerk, and it's about a guy who is going to propose. He works at the Coca-Cola bottling plant, and he's going to propose to his girlfriend, who thinks it's never going to happen. and he's clumsy, so he drops the ring, and it gets bottled or canned into a can of Coke. So he spends the whole movie chasing down where all the Coke from that batch was delivered, trying to find the one with the ring in it. Like, it's a really cute movie. It's fast-paced. He has all this places that you go to get a Coke. The finale takes place at, obviously, a Coca-Cola convention where there's Coke everywhere. And in the end, when he gives up, it's in a vending machine, whereas his wife-to-be it works at or something. It's really cute. I had a lot of fun writing that. It was really fast. And then the other one that I wrote, this one I wrote even faster because he wanted it quick. I pitched the idea of Santa Claus. It's a Santa Claus movie, and the gist is there's an evil guy named, his name is Dickie Dranks, and Dranks is going to ruin Christmas because he's created a toy that when nobody's in the room wreaks havoc so that all the children of the world will be put on the naughty list. And the government, who has to deal with this, they think it's silly because they don't believe in Santa Claus. So they send a guy to the North Pole because he believes that this Dickie Dranks guy, the problem is that Dickie Dranks, his fortress where he does business, the government can't get into it. So this happy-go-lucky FBI agent goes to the North Pole because the one man who can get into any building is Santa Claus. So he goes to Santa and convinces Santa to become a secret agent. So the elves build all this gear for him. It has candy cane grappling hooks and snow globes that explode and it snows in the room, that kind of thing. And Santa has to save Christmas. It's called Secret Santa. It is a really fun screenplay. Santa saves the day. It's just really cute, And I write these things, and when they don't become movies, what do? You just keep writing. You just keep writing. And Secret Santa begat 2 other unfinished screenplays. I know, horrors. Unfinished screenplays that were about secret agents. The first one was called Life Lessons, where a guy who writes spy novels is such a dork that he's bullied in his real life. So the agent that he writes pops out of the book to help him become a man. And the writer, who is human, helps the literary character become a human. That's the life lesson part. And they do all the tricks of, they use white powdered donuts to get through a laser beam room, like that sort of. It's fun. I didn't finish it for some reason. And the other one was another secret agent that I didn't finish called Double Agent. And it's about the greatest agent in the world, spy agent. It's a woman. It's a huge action sequence at the beginning. She saves the day, and we cut to a year later, and she's telling a cab driver to race through the streets, and you think you're on a big mission with her, but instead she pops out of the cab pregnant and looking for a bathroom. And I wrote that because when Rachel was pregnant, she needed to be never more than 20 feet from a bathroom. So the gimmick is that on Double Agent, the bad guy incapacitates the entire secret agent apparatus, and the only one left to save the day is the pregnant agent that turned in her gun. So all she has is a diaper bag. So she has to use baby powder to get through the laser room. Laser room's always going to be in a spy movie. She uses baby powder, and she uses diaper rash ointment to smear on the lens of laser. It's a really cute script. It never got finished, sadly. Double Agent because she's pregnant. Wah. But I closed off my screenwriting extravaganza, like writing so many in a row. And obviously the reason is because I decided to buckle down and write a novel. So the last screenplay that I wrote, I think eventually will become one of my novels because I really like the story of it. And I like the characters. It's about the characters, folks. So I wrote what I considered to be the most expensive screenplay ever written. And I gave it the most innocuous title ever. It's called The House on First Street. And I just love this screenplay. It opens on The House on First Street. It's a house for sale. And a guy and his wife are running through it, videotaping their tour of this house to see if they like it. And a lot of people now videotape so that because when you go house hunting, you see a lot of houses. So you videotape, you take pictures, so you remember what is what, right? So he's videotaping, and he sets the camera down, and all you see is the house, the interior, and you hear them talking. So the story begins initially with the wife and the 10 or 12-year-old son are at the grocery store, and there's a robbery. And in the midst of the robbery, the wife is shot protecting the child, and she dies. This was where I lost Rachel reading it. She did not get any farther than the mom dying, for obvious reasons. Even though I said, look, you've got to. There has to be strife, sadness, and darkness to appreciate the light. The characters in your screenplay cannot have the greatest lives all the time. They have to overcome things. So the main character, this guy, he's lost his wife. They don't buy the house on First Street. Instead, him and his son move into an apartment, and he spends the next 6 months on the couch, looking awful, growing a scraggly beard, and destroying his health and ignoring his son. And everything changes when this weird, very charismatic guy shows up. And he's like, I'm here to put you out of your misery, to help, not to kill you, but I'm here to bring you out of your misery. And the guy's got this doofus of a best friend who is important to the story later. But this stranger knows everything about this guy. He doesn't know him. He's very, suspicious of him. So eventually the stranger gets thrown in jail. So the only thing we really see of him is he looks up at the television in the holding cell, and when the camera pans back down, he's gone. And doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we meet back up with the guy. He's dropped his kid off at school. He's arranged for his dummy best friend to come over and watch TV with him. And instead, he gets sidetracked by the stranger guy who's out of prison. He's like, I sent you to jail. And he's like, look, we have to talk. We're connected in a way you're never going to believe. And the guy says, try me. And he goes, well, let me tell you. Inside your TV is another world. And the world is populated by the things that you watch. And I live there. And I know everybody there. And it's terrible now because you've given up on life. And we're a reflection of you. And he's like, you're from the TV, huh? Are you out of your mind? I'm going to call the cops. And he's like, let me show you. So he grabs him, and they fall into the television. And the next thing you know, they're on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. And the guy's like, did you drug me? He's like, no, I'm just wait and see. So they start walking along the dirt road when the guy's like, look, I don't believe any of this. It's BS. And when I get back to civilization, you're in trouble, pal. And that's when they hear, they hear the horn of the General Lee. And then the General Lee pulls up with Bo and Luke Duke. The Dukes of Hazzard are driving the car. And the guy can't believe it. Like, you guys are really... And he's like, oh my God, it's you. And they're like, you? Yeah. You guys need a lift into town? And he's like, yeah, we need a lift into town. So they get in the car. They get chased by Roscoe. They jump over a gorge. And they get dropped off in town. And the guy can't believe it. The town is every sitcom and TV show location all in one. Mel's Diner is next to the Mission Impossible 4. I mean, every television show you can possibly imagine that has a place. The Peach Pit from Beverly Hills 90210. They're all there, but they're all run down. And like Mel looks out the diner, sees who it is, and closes up. And the guy's like, "What's going on?" So back in the real world, the guy's son is being bullied at school, and the doofus friend sits and is waiting for his friend to show up, but he's never coming. He's trapped in the TV. So what happens is he changes the channel. And in the TV world, the world rotates so that whatever program is watching is now the focus. So what happens is that he gets pulled away from the charismatic stranger, our main character, and he ends up at a mall running from a monster and trying to keep up with Fox and Mulder from the X-Files. So what happens, they figure out that they have to disconnect the channel changer because they can't get anywhere as long as this guy is channel surfing. So they have to drive to the channel transmitter tower. So they enlist the aid of the A-team, and they get in the van, and they drive there, and MacGyver shows up to help them. There's a lot of special effects. There's a lot of cameos from a lot of TV shows I'm not even mentioning. And the gist of it is he finally gets taken to City Hall to meet the mayor. Like, the mayor's going to explain exactly how he can fix things. And when he gets there, the mayor is him. He's the mayor. It's his doppelganger. And the mayor is a complete jerk-off. The mayor is everything that's bad about him, all his bitterness, all his rage. And the mayor ends up pulling a gun on our hero and shooting him. All the while, the charismatic stranger is like, no, you have to undo this. You have all the power in the world. You just don't know it. So a lot like The Matrix, but VCR style, our hero realizes all he has to do is rewind. He's laying there in a pool of his own blood, realizing if I just rewind this program, I won't be dead. So he rewinds it, and the gun goes back the bullet goes back in the gun. So he defeats the mayor. He saves the day, and the guy's like, "I'll take you home now, but we just have one more stop." And so this is why the script is so good. Yes, it has all of this amazing intellectual property usage in it of characters, locations, iconic vehicles, the Starship Enterprise, the Love Boat, you name it. But in the end, it's about people. And before he gets taken home out of the TV, he pulls up to the house on First Street. And the stranger says, "Well, of course it's here because you keep watching that videotape." And the guy's like, "What?" He goes, "We're populated by the things you watch on your television." And he realizes in that moment his wife is in the house. So he gets out of the car and he has this out-of-body experience of walking up to the door of the house on First Street, opening it, and there she is, alive and beautiful and living and breathing. And they reenact the scene from the beginning. And then when the camera tips over and shows the wall, that's the part of the tape we didn't get to see in the beginning. And that's the part of the tape where he's telling her goodbye. And he's holding her and saying, I'm going to let this part of me go. And I'm going to let you're going to live here in my memory forever. But I have to move on. I have a kid that needs me. So he ends up being zapped out of the TV with more help from MacGyver and the A-team and that sort of thing. They save the day. The bully gets beaten up with somebody shows up from one of the shows to help him beat the bully. I don't remember what it was. And he starts his life over again. And it's all very sweet. Like they show him like making eyes at they buy a new house in a new neighborhood, and there's a new male lady that's very pretty, and they have like a moment. They're playing catch with in the yard. Like he's awakened to his son needing him. And then we're treated to fly through the TV. We see the city, beautiful and fresh, and it ends with like just it's everything's reset to beautiful. It's a script I'm really proud of because it's busy, it's crazy, and ultimately it boils down to just a really sweet moment between two characters who need to be together one last time. It's a really intricate script. It's never going to get made. It's way too expensive. It's the heartbroken love story version of Ready Player One. I totally get that. I'm going to wrap this up, folks. There's obviously going to be a part 3 to this because I'm going to walk you through what it's like to take on a project so big that you want to die in the middle of it. And of course, I'm referring to writing a novel. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life is write a novel. I'm almost finished with novel 4, but because I'm stupid. But we'll get to that on the next episode of 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?